Hi there, and welcome back to Leon Reads the channel, where we share powerful insights and personal growth lessons through great books. Imagine being stranded on an isolated island. No adults, no rules, just a group of boys fighting to survive. But what happens when fear, power, and human nature take over? Lord of the Flies is not just a survival story, it's a chilling exploration of the darkness that lurks inside us all. In today's video, we'll dive deep into William Golding's classic novel, uncovering its powerful themes, unforgettable characters, and how it reflects the fragile balance between civilization and savagery. Are we really as civilized as we think? Stick around to find out, because this story might just change the way you see humanity forever. If you enjoy what you hear and want to dive deeper, we've included a link to the book in the description below. Now, let's get started. Lord of the Flies, 1954, is an allegorical story about a group of teenagers stranded on an uninhabited island. They must struggle to survive and build their own society. In the process of dealing with difficulties in leadership, cooperation, and survival, these young boys face fundamental questions about human nature and the fragility of civilization. William Golding was an English novelist, playwright, and poet who won the Nobel Prize in Literature. In addition to Lord of the Flies, his most famous work, Golding is also known for 12 other novels, including The Inheritors and Rites of Passage. He was knighted in 1988 for his significant contributions to literature. There are things in life we often take for granted. We wake up, work, and try to live our best lives. However, take a moment to think about the factors that help you accomplish these things. What keeps society functioning smoothly? It is the collective adherence to basic societal rules that most people accept. So, what happens if these rules are broken? Which aspects of human nature do these rules protect? These are the questions that William Golding explores in his famous allegorical novel, Lord of the Flies, written in the early 1950s. Following the horrors of World War II, and before the anxieties of the Cold War and the threat of nuclear destruction, Golding pondered the fragile existence of civilization and the true nature of humanity. By telling the story from the perspective of boys stranded on a deserted island, Golding created an allegory for modern society, exploring the dark nature of mankind. This content will highlight some of the most prominent themes presented in Lord of the Flies, themes that are still highly relevant in today's world, such as the struggle between civilization and barbarism, moral decay, and the psychology of the mob, and how all these elements relate to human nature. Not long after escaping the wreckage of the plane, Ralph accidentally encounters Piggy, an innocent and kind boy. While exploring the island, they find a conch shell. Ralph blows into the shell, creating a loud, deep sound as a signal to gather the other boys. Once everyone is assembled, it's time for the boys to discuss their current situation and plan for the future. Things begin smoothly. After a democratic vote, Ralph is chosen as the leader of the group, defeating Jack, the ambitious boy. To maintain order, they agree that only the person holding the conch shell is allowed to speak. After selecting a leader and establishing order, Ralph proceeds to assign tasks, sending groups to explore the island, building shelters, and lighting a fire. However, tensions soon arise, especially between Ralph and Jack. First, Jack and his group of hunters fail to maintain the fire. Second, there is a disagreement about a creature lurking somewhere on the island. Ralph doubts its existence, while Jack insists it is real and that he will kill it. As Jack grows increasingly savage and obsessed with hunting the beast, many of the boys begin to follow him. Some are drawn by the promise of meat, while others follow out of fear of the mysterious creature. Those who do not follow Jack are tortured or killed by him and his followers. For example, Piggy is crushed by a giant boulder, and the conch shell is shattered. In the final, tense moments of the book, Ralph is the only boy not under Jack's control. He runs around the island, evading spears as Jack and his followers hunt him down. Ralph is sure he will be killed like Piggy, but at the last moment, he encounters a naval officer, drawn to the island by the smoke from the fires. This marks the end of Ralph's struggle, and the conclusion of the book. We can see the power struggle between Ralph and Jack, which highlights one of the central themes of the book, the conflict between civilization and savagery. To better understand this part of the story, we need to consider the role of the simple conch shell. From the beginning, Ralph uses the conch shell as a tool to maintain order. It summons the group together, and they use it to prevent chaos in their discussions. The conch symbolizes the perfect structure of society, with the idea that if everyone agrees to do their part and follow the rules, the system will work efficiently. As the group begins to argue due to fear and paranoia, Ralph contemplates using the conch shell to regain control. He says, "If I blow the conch and they don't come back, we'll be like animals." Piggy, representing reason, responds, "But if you don't blow, we'll soon be like animals anyway. If we don't try to maintain order, savagery will take over." This is precisely what we see in Jack's character. From the start, he seeks to become a leader through undemocratic means, and is continually obsessed with power and violence. When the group no longer follows Ralph and the rules of the conch, the boys gradually descend into savagery. This leads to the inevitable outcome when Jack and his followers kill Piggy, the one who represents reason, and destroy the conch, the symbol of order. So, what is the message here? Beneath the safety provided by societal order, our primal violent instincts are always ready to erupt if those rules are not protected. Let's explore Simon, a boy with bright eyes and messy black hair. Simon stands out as unique and different from the other boys. He is shy, reserved, and prefers spending time alone. One day, Simon wanders through the forest, helping the younger boys pick fruit they can't reach. He leads them down a narrow trail deep into the woods, to a sunny clearing. In this place, surrounded by vines and dark ferns, Simon simply sits and listens to the sounds of the island, the birds singing, the insects buzzing, and the distant sound of the ocean waves. After a long period, Simon returns to the same place, but this time, the tranquility and beauty are gone. Jack and his bloodthirsty followers have killed a pig and mounted its head on a stick in the very spot Simon loved. In his exhaustion and delirium from dehydration, Simon begins conversing with the horrifying pig's head, referred to as the Lord of the Flies, because of the black flies buzzing around it. In this chilling conversation, the Lord of the Flies claims to be the beast inside each of them and tells Simon that he is not welcome there. In his delirium, Simon sees the pig's mouth open and swallow him, rendering him unconscious. When Simon wakes up, he feels more alert. He returns to the group and discovers that they are terrified of a beast. A dead soldier had parachuted from a crashed plane and gotten caught on a rock. The parachute tangled with the corpse, creating an image of a terrifying monster. With bravery and innocence, Simon climbs up to the dead soldier's body to prove that it is not the beast everyone is afraid of. But when he returns to inform the others, in their panic, they mistake Simon for the beast and attack him, beating him to death with their bare hands. This is the tragic fate of Simon. To understand one of the main themes of Lord of the Flies, we need to examine Simon's character and role. As we know, Ralph represents civilization, while Jack symbolizes savagery. So what does Simon represent? Simon lives simply and truthfully. He is in harmony with nature, helping the younger boys, and always joyful when he is free. Simon represents goodness and purity. This is also the reason why he must die. The loss of Simon's innocence is one of the key themes of the story. This is demonstrated by the contrast between the peaceful forest and the violent place tainted by a pig's head. In some ways, Simon does not fit into the world of Lord of the Flies, as the other boys transform from happy boys into savage killers. Simon, with his goodness and purity, no longer has a place. When he is brutally murdered, it is only because of his bravery. This shows that moral decay and savagery are inevitable. So, what is the pig's head, the Lord of the Flies, that Simon sees? It is a symbol of evil. You could call it a demon if you like. Although the interaction between Simon and it is merely a hallucination, the claim that the beast exists inside all of us is very real. When we lose our innocence, are we facing the evil of the world, or is the evil always present within us? Ask Simon. Kill the pig, cut its throat. These were the words Jack and his hunting group shouted after their first hunt. They marched, chanting, and brought the pig's carcass back to the fire. They talked and reveled in the excitement after the hunt. "We've killed the pig," one of the group members declared. Jack proudly boasted, "I slit the pig's throat." They paid no attention to the fact that the hunt had extinguished the signal fire. They felt satisfied having completed the task and earned their reward. Kill the pig, cut its throat. Kill the pig, stab it. They continued chanting. This time it was another hunt, but in their frenzy, they attacked Robert, a member of the group. They surrounded Robert and stabbed him with spears while he screamed and struggled. Ralph, one of the boys, felt deeply uneasy. Eventually, they stopped, treating it as a game, though Robert did not feel the same. Killed the beast, cut its throat. This time, Simon unwittingly became the target of this strange ritual. In their panic over a shadowy figure lurking near the beast's hiding place, the entire group became hysterical. Before Simon could explain who he was and what he had seen, they mistook him for the beast and savagely killed him with their teeth and nails. Kill the beast. The last time we hear this chant is when the savage tribe dances around the fire, shortly after they kill Piggy. Their faces are painted with all sorts of colors, united in their fear of the invisible beast. Finally, they attack Ralph, the only boy left on the island who has not joined the mob. He narrowly escapes death. A naval officer arrives just in time, saving him from the brutal hands of Jack and his bloodthirsty followers. What we witness with these out-of-control boys is a textbook example of mob mentality and the horrific actions humans can commit when they lose themselves to the power of fear. It all started with a seemingly harmless event, hunting a pig to provide food for the group. But each individual in the group gradually loses their humanity. They talk among themselves and influence each other's psychology during the hunt. Before long, fear becomes the justification for violence. In the minds of these children, what they are killing is no longer a pig, but a terrifying monster. It is this violence and fear that unite the group, and this unity only increases the violence. Soon, they are caught up in frenzied attacks, killing group members and those who refuse to conform to the mob. Eventually, they dance together, their faces painted, signifying how the individual has been overtaken by the collective, who became the victim of this mob. Simon the boy with a kind heart, Piggy the boy with rational thinking, and ultimately, Ralph who represents civilization. These values not only oppose the mob mentality, but are also attacked and destroyed by it. Lord of the Flies tells the story of boys on a deserted island and their inner battle. However, there is a larger war behind the scenes, which we only see a small part of, from the moment the boys arrive on the island after an evacuation. Piggy tells of a man with a loudspeaker and soldiers who might rescue them. Didn't you hear what the pilot said about the atomic bomb? They're all dead. The author doesn't provide much detail on this, but it's clear that the children are fleeing from a large-scale nuclear war. Later, they find the body of a parachutist. This person had jumped from a shot-down plane. While the boys think it's the mythical beast, the reality is just as horrifying: a bloodied, broken body caught between rocks and swaying in the wind. Eventually, when Ralph desperately tries to flee from Jack and his followers, he is rescued by a naval officer. At first, the officer is shocked by the boys' savage behavior, but in the end, he simply sees them as children playing. "Just have fun," he sarcastically remarks, mocking the boys for not putting on a better show, as British lads should. In general, every detail referring to the adult world is connected to war, violence, or arrogance. So, why did Golding choose an unnamed war as the backdrop for his story? The primary reason is the context in which Golding was writing and the themes he was exploring. The early 1950s was a significant time. The world had just gone through World War II, and people were well aware of the atrocities humanity could commit. At the same time, the Cold War was a constant threat, with the potential to destroy all of civilization. This backdrop provided Golding with the inspiration to write about the fragility of civilization and the inevitable moral decay of mankind. You see, this work is not just about boys stranded on a deserted island trying to survive. Adults in the real world are much like those boys, prone to inner evil and savagery. In the future, these boys would become the next generation of adults, if the world were to survive that long. When their society collapses, Piggy and Ralph assume that the adults will fix the problem. Adults know best. They won't fight over a beast. When the naval officer remarks that the boys' behavior is inappropriate for English boys, it is both ironic and sad. The implication is that the savagery and violence the boys exhibit are not much different from the soldiers who fight and bomb other countries. As Golding himself once said about his book, "In the end, the adults save the children, but who will save the adults?" So, what do you think about this grim conclusion? Will savagery defeat civilization, and where does our fate lie when evil can triumph? Like Ralph, the boy who fought to the end, this is not a reason to give up, but rather a reason to keep trying. The story takes place on an unnamed island in the Pacific, where a group of British boys crash after being evacuated from a nuclear war. From the wreckage, Ralph, a 12-year-old boy, meets Piggy, a chubby boy with asthma. Together, they find a conch shell, and Ralph uses it to gather the other survivors, including the ambitious Jack and his group, Simon, who has epilepsy, and a group of younger children. Using the conch to decide who has the right to speak, they initially establish a democratic society, with Ralph as the leader. However, the boys begin to panic when they believe a fierce beast exists on the island. Ralph tries to convince them that there is no beast, while Jack insists that he will hunt and kill the monster. This disagreement ultimately splits the group into two factions. Jack's group becomes increasingly violent and savage, eventually killing Simon and Piggy, then setting the entire island on fire. Ralph runs from the bloodthirsty boys and is rescued by a naval officer. The book ends with the officer expressing his disappointment in the boys' behavior. Lord of the Flies is a powerful and unsettling exploration of the fragile nature of civilization and the darkness within human beings. The novel is set on an isolated island, where a group of boys is stranded after a plane crash. As they attempt to establish a society, their descent into chaos and savagery is depicted vividly, reflecting deeper themes of human nature, power struggles, and the conflict between civilization and barbarism. Golding's portrayal of the boys' rapid transformation from innocent children into violent, primal beings raises profound questions about the inherent violence within humanity. Ralph, the protagonist, symbolizes order and reason, while Jack represents the allure of power and savagery. The struggle between them is not only a personal conflict, but also a representation of the clash between civilized behavior and the darker, more instinctual forces that lie beneath the surface. The novel highlights the dangers of groupthink and mob mentality, as seen when the boys, in their collective hysteria, murder Simon, and later, Piggy. Simon, in particular, embodies purity and insight, making his death an especially tragic commentary on the loss of innocence and the inevitability of moral decay. The brutal final scene, where Ralph is chased by the boys, only to be rescued by a naval officer, underscores the contrast between the innocence of childhood and the harsh realities of the adult world, including war and violence. Golding's use of the island as a microcosm for the larger world is a compelling metaphor for the constant struggle between civilization and savagery. In conclusion, Lord of the Flies serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of social structures and the potential for darkness within every individual. It challenges the idealistic view of human nature, suggesting that without the constraints of society, chaos and brutality are never far away. The novel leaves the reader with a lingering sense of unease about the nature of human existence and the thin veneer that separates us from savagery. And that wraps up our deep dive into this remarkable book. We hope it's been valuable to you. If you're interested in more titles with similar themes, leave a comment with your thoughts and recommend. You can also buy the book to experience it more clearly, as well as support the author. I will leave the link in the description below for you to easily search. If you like the channel, you can press the like button, share, and turn on the notification bell to receive new content. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next video.